Here's the latest headline from the Crypto Basic. XRP supply shock might be on the horizon as major exchanges like Binance report a massive 12.4 billion drop in XRP reserves. If that's true, it's pretty exciting news, and I'll tell you why, but is it actually true? Let's dive in because this topic has been getting a ton of attention over the past 48 hours. We now have some clarity on what's really going on, so let me break it all down for you. Let me just start by saying this. No offense, but some of you really need to be a little more skeptical when you hear wild claims. It's always a good idea to pause and think things through. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time, there's a logical explanation for something that might seem a bit out there at first. That said, I want to be super clear up front. I don't have a financial background, and this is definitely not financial advice. Please don't make any decisions to buy or sell based on anything I say or write. Always do your own research. All right, here's the scoop. Over the past week, multiple crypto exchanges like Binance and Upbit have seen a massive 12.4 billion drop in their XRP reserves. That's 12.4 billion worth of XRP that's no longer sitting on those exchanges. It's a pretty big deal. Why does this matter to XRP holders? Well, it's actually pretty interesting. When large amounts of crypto like XRP are moved off exchanges, it's often a good sign. Why? Because it usually means people aren't planning to sell anytime soon. If they were, they'd likely keep it on the exchange to make a quick trade. Instead, moving XRP off exchanges typically hints at long-term holding or storage. Now, of course, there are always exceptions. Sometimes people move XRP onto an exchange thinking they'll sell, decide not to, and then take it back off. A lot can happen here, but once XRP moves off exchanges, the chances of selling drop significantly. From what I understand, if this is true, it could be the biggest single outflow of XRP from exchanges worldwide that we've ever seen. That's pretty huge. You think the price would start reacting sooner rather than later, honestly. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, here's what's happening. The market analytics platform CryptoQuant recently revealed some interesting developments that have sparked chatter about a possible supply shock in the XRP community. This comes as XRP's price has been holding steady around $2 since February, but it looks like confidence might finally be creeping back into the market. But here's the scoop. CryptoQuant's data shows a major drop in exchange reserves across several big crypto platforms like Binance, Bitfinex, Upbit, and Bybit. Binance and Upbit in particular saw the largest volumes. It's worth mentioning that CryptoQuant is widely respected in the crypto world, so their insights definitely carry weight. I didn't jump to any conclusions right away or assume anything shady was going on, but take a look at these charts. Seriously, this is wild. These were shared by chart analyst Zoom and show the XRP exchange reserves for Upbit and Binance. What's going on here? See that purple line? That's the exchange reserve. Up top, you've got Upbit, and on the bottom, Binance. And look at this. Both just drop off at almost the exact same time. It's not just a dip. It's like falling off a cliff. You can see how the reserves normally go up and down, sometimes quickly, sometimes slower, but then boom, a sudden straight line drop. That's definitely something worth paying attention to. I'll be honest, my first reaction was, oh, this must be a glitch. And hey, there's no harm in asking questions, right? I wasn't 100% sure, and I didn't dive too deep into it at first, but man, this is something that really stands out. Honestly, I was feeling super optimistic that it was just a glitch, so I didn't think much of it at first. I glanced at it quickly, and when others started posting about it, I wasn't really paying close attention. I just thought, it's probably a glitch. That said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking questions, so no critique here. I'm just sharing some examples so you can get a clearer picture of what this looks like. Here's another example from Crypto Insight UK. I've seen these charts making the rounds on crypto Twitter, and it seems like XRP is being bought up on exchanges in massive amounts. But here's the big question. Is it legit or just another glitch? If anyone has more info, let me know. I'll dive into what it could mean in just a moment. So here's why I brought this up. It looks like XRP has been getting scooped up in huge amounts on exchanges. But hold on, that doesn't necessarily mean what it might seem at first. This data just shows the flow of XRP, and we can't really know how long people had it sitting on the exchange or what their reasons are for moving it around. Just because funds move off an exchange doesn't automatically mean they've been purchased. Think about it. How many times have you bought something, left it sitting there for months or even a year, and totally forgotten to take control of it? If you're not practicing self-custody, this probably sounds familiar. How many of you have done that? You buy something, but it just sits on the exchange. If that's the case, it doesn't really matter if it's been 3 months. It doesn't mean it's truly yours. I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. Dom over at TraderView 2 actually wrote a great piece on this recently. He mentioned getting a ton of messages yesterday about XRP exchange reserves dropping significantly. While he didn't have time to dig into it, he made an important point. Coins leaving exchanges don't necessarily mean they've been purchased. Here's an example. I bought XRP 8 months ago, left it sitting on the exchange, and only withdrew it last week. Now, let me pause to point something out. Yes, it's true that some people buy crypto and move it off the exchange almost immediately. But just because you see movement doesn't mean that's what's happening. It's not that simple. And here's the thing. Those platforms showing you that data, they're often wrong. They misclassify transfers unless the exchange publishes a complete list of all their wallets. So no source is 100% accurate. The only way to truly identify actual buy and sell transactions is by analyzing the tick trade data and order books. Trying to link blockchain transactions directly to purchases or sales, honestly, it's a waste of time. Spot on. Another way to check would have been to look directly at the XRP ledger. If you did, you'd have seen that there weren't any massive transactions happening. That's one way to clear things up. But here's a helpful update from my fellow XRP YouTuber, Crypto Eddie. Those XRP outflows were confirmed to be a data glitch. Just another reminder to always double check information. So yeah, no issues here. Honestly, it's smart to question things. If you saw that data and thought, this doesn't seem right, or asked, hey, could this be something serious? Good on you. It's always better to dig deeper. But for anyone who immediately panicked and thought, oh no, massive outflows, looming supply shock, and come on, let's not jump to conclusions so quickly. I tell you something, there's no shortage of interesting developments happening right now. I think Dom mentioned this in a post I've talked about on my channel before. It was something about wallets. Oh yeah, XRP wallets. Actually, I might have shared this just yesterday if we're talking about the same thing. Check this out. Wallets holding over 1 million XRP have hit an all-time high recently. 2,850 wallets in total. Even though XRP's price has been moving sideways for the past 6 months, people are still stacking up. And it's not just the big holders. Wallets with over 10,000 XRP have also been hitting new highs, with a 6.2% increase in holders so far this year. That's 306,000 wallets. Pretty incredible, right? So you might be wondering, are people stockpiling XRP? And could this kind of behavior lead to something like a supply shock? Well, if things keep moving this way, it's clear these are the folks who know what they're doing. They're the ones accumulating at just the right time. This is what smart money looks like. Let's talk about the people holding massive amounts of XRP. First off, if someone has a wallet this size, they've likely been smart with their investments. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built or maintained that kind of wealth. This shows a huge vote of confidence that XRP is going to be worth much more in the future. They wouldn't be making these moves if they didn't believe that. Now let's look at the next group, accounts holding 10,000 or more XRP. Owning that much is becoming harder and harder for the average person, which makes these holders part of a very elite group. If you're one of them, congratulations. You're among the largest XRP holders on the planet. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if people with these amounts of XRP end up feeling incredibly happy with their decision in the future. Over the past 6 months, there's been a noticeable surge in activity. It's really picking up. It's clear that people are buying and accumulating, and when this kind of momentum builds, it can lead to something like a supply shock. Think about it. Huge amounts of XRP are being moved off exchanges right now, even setting aside that recent glitch. The numbers show it's happening. Plus, more wallets are being created every day. The less XRP available to buy, combined with an increase in demand, creates a perfect storm. Greater demand chasing a shrinking supply. You know what that means. Price surge, my friend. That's absolutely right. Demand is always more important than supply. Of course, that's a whole other discussion. But when it comes to XRP, this is especially true. Here's why. Almost all of the XRP out there is already considered to be in circulation. Well, the majority of it anyway. Even if the supply somehow doubled, which it won't, it wouldn't really matter because the demand has the potential to grow way beyond that. So yeah, things are looking pretty exciting for us XRP holders as we move forward. So here's the scoop from Crypto Basic. I'm not going to bore you with every single detail. They really dive deep into the numbers for each exchange, but let's get to the point. Did exchanges actually see over 12 billion in XRP outflows in just one day? Let's break it down. There were reports flying around that platforms like Binance and Upbit saw billions in XRP outflows recently. But when you look at the on-chain data, the story gets more interesting. This week, the XRP community noticed something unusual with exchange flows across several major trading platforms. Specifically, exchanges like Binance and Upbit were reportedly hit with massive XRP outflows, sparking all kinds of speculation about a potential supply shock. The Crypto Basic recently highlighted an interesting development with data from market analytics platform CryptoQuant showing over 12 billion worth of XRP withdrawals. According to CryptoQuant, Binance recorded outflows of 617 million XRP in just a week, and Upbit reportedly the hardest hit saw a staggering 4.989 billion XRP withdrawn. Other exchanges like Bybit and Bitfinex were also affected by the trend. But here's the twist. In a previous report, we confirmed through an on-chain investigation that the wallets linked to these exchanges didn't show any activity reflecting such massive fund movements. This led us to suggest the possibility of a data glitch, and honestly, that's where the investigation should have started. It's always good to start with the most logical explanation, right? That's exactly where we began, and it made the most sense from the get-go. Always be a little skeptical when you hear a big, bold claim like that. It's totally fine to ask questions. Actually, it's smart to ask, what if it turns out to be true, right? But I wouldn't make that your first assumption. Here's the thing, the more outrageous or unbelievable the claim, the stronger the evidence needs to be to back it up. This applies to everything in life, not just crypto. The wilder the statement, the more you should pause and think, I'm not sure about that. So my advice, start with a healthy dose of skepticism when you hear something that sounds too good to be true. So they went through the exchange data and XRP quantities, and everything now looks just as you'd expect. It seems CryptoQuant is reporting data correctly again, even though they haven't admitted there was a glitch on their platform. The data now looks just like it should have if that little hiccup hadn't happened. Pretty obvious, right? Yes, it was a glitch. They haven't officially acknowledged it, at least not yet, but hey, they fixed it. No big deal. Case closed. Let's all move on. Here's the takeaway. Don't be too gullible. Stay skeptical. That's always a good approach. Oh, and by the way, I'm not a financial advisor. Please don't buy or sell anything based on what I say. Seriously, that would be a bad idea.